Yeah, it was just, I remember going to the Penta shows and just like, oh my God, it's a massive ballroom in New York full of like comic book dealers that I don't see once a month, you know? Because like at the Greco show, you would constantly see the same fucking dealers.
Stock.
Do you remember the dealers?
Our nicknames, but not certainly not their real names if I ever knew them to begin with.
Like, Blotchy.
Blotchy, yes.
Named so because?
He had a weird pink blotch to him all over his arms.
I think he had, what is it called when you're, I forget the name of it. My father had it too, but not like Blotchy had it, but where you get like really rough elbows. I forget the name of the condition. But he had it all over the fucking place, man.
Yeah.
Just like these big red, not welts, but just like these massive patches of red. Like Gorbachev, but fucking times a million. Just red all over the joint. And rather than fucking bother learning his name, we just called him Blotchy, not to his fucking face.
Oh, no.
But it's the same way like Steve Dave became Steve Dave, because we weren't sure whether his name was Steve or Dave. And we called him Steve Dave, but never really to his face, except once or twice. If you wanted to address him from across the room, you'd be like, Steve Dave. And see if he responded to either of them. But Blotchy was a dude. Who was the other dude?
Cha-ching?
Yeah, why was he cha-ching?
Because he had a belt. He used to wear a change belt. Something like out of like, the 50s roller rink, one of those things. Like,
dude on the, would you like some saltwater taffy, kid? Cha-ching, cha-ching, and it'd give you your fucking change. If you showed your daughter this change thing,
she would be like, that's from another world.
Because even at our age when we were doing it, it was just like, maybe I've seen that in a movie or something like that. Do you remember the fucking show where we were driving back from New York? It was me.
If you're talking about the Muse?
Yes.
That was in New York.
Where was it?
That was down south, like at Tom's River. We went to like the most terrible show we ever went to, and it was one comic book dealer. And it was Blotchy.
And it was Blotchy, a dude that we saw all the time in our neck of the woods. So we're like, hey, man, we're busting this shit exotic. We're going to new places. And fucking the only comic
I know what you're talking about. That was maybe where my jaw had like hurt for hours later from laughing so much that I had never felt the pain like that.
It was me, you, Johnson,
and Muse.
And when this was a 14-year-old Muse.
Yeah.
Who was like way into comics but didn't have any comics. He had some comics
that we would just give him
the real dregs. Like he had an entire run of Vigilante that you were like, I hate this book, and gave to him, and it was the best comic in the world. That's one of the things that's always been charming about Muse is there's no such thing as a bad comic. No. Dude's never read a bad comic. He's just like, how was that? He's like, oh, it was awesome. And you're like, dude, it was Richie Rich. He's like, oh, it was awesome. But even the worst, like the New Universe books and shit like that, or
he would find something in it that just...
Sonic Disruptors,
yes.
Shit like that. He would just be like, oh, man, that was awesome. And it was just the graphic art somehow appealed to him or whatever. Just the fantasy. Who knows what it was, but he fucking loved it. But so we started taking him to the show, and this dude didn't have any fucking money to buy any comic books. It was just so weird because we were all like late teens, early 20s, hanging out with a 14-year-old kid, driving around, sometimes taking him out of state, taking him weird places. Like if he'd had like conventional parents, they might have been like, "Can we meet your old friends? Are they trying to give you drugs? Did they ever ask you to look at their peepees?" Like it's just such a weird notion, but we did hang out.
Exactly. Like if my daughter was like turns 14 and she's driving like around with a young 20-year-olds going like taking them around, I'd be like, no, that ain't happening. Something's wrong with them. They don't. Normal people don't hang out with 14-year-olds.
Yeah, why are they doing this? What do they want from you?
Exactly.
Have they introduced a video camera yet? And it was a weird motley crew too. It was just like I was working in convenience stores. You were working at the Rec. Johnson was, I think, a 2-time college dropout at that point. But like, could you imagine if Muse had traditional parents be like, okay, so let me understand it. One of these dudes doesn't have a license. Because you didn't get how old were you when you finally got your driver's license?
20s. I don't even remember.
It would be like I would probably call the police. like officer, I don't know that any crime's been committed, but this is just weird. It's a fishy situation.
And the only
and oddly enough, it wasn't like we go to comic book show and then we go get fucked up and drink beers or anything.
No,
none of us drank, none of us did drugs. It was completely fucking innocent, with the exception.
Innocent in terms of that, like he made us laugh, so we're like, he's funny. Let's bring him.
But he made us laugh, but he didn't intentionally make us laugh. The day we came back from that Tom's River show, I think I almost got in a fucking car accident because I was laughing so hard. But it was like the drive from Tom's River to Highlands, maybe a 45-minute drive. And it was 45 minutes of the most humiliating beratement, like jovial beratement that anyone has ever been subjected to. And it started very simply because it was just like we were talking about, Muse couldn't get books.
But I think Muse even offered up, like, maybe if I sucked his dick, he would have gave me a comic book. I mean, he opened the door that we just kicked open and just...
It was the notion of Muse going like, maybe if I sucked his dick, he'd give me a vigilante. And then suddenly we were like, yeah, and the 45-minute ride was just like a non-stop fucking series of just deeds so fucking like so insane, heinous, worse than pissing in a little gnome's mouth, of him and these things that he would do, that Blotchy would do to him, and do to him in order to give him a fucking comic book. What he would do,
a wall book. I said that in his 50-cent box.
Sucking this dude's cock, sucking the cocks of his friends that weren't even there, him taking a shit in his mouth. Just really fucking weird, heinous stuff, going home and having to live with them for a week.
Do you remember how we played it up, though, as if, like, Blotchy, like, as we entered the room, Blotchy was all, like, sweaty and nervous, waiting for like, pacing back and forth like a fucking lion, waiting for Muse to arrive. He had tasted Muse at previous shows. He was just hoping beyond hope he might appear at this show. And he'd be like, this show is closed!
And it would go on for so long. And he started as a participant, like, because he instigated it with his comment. Oh, and then it would slowly fucking devolve.
He pretended he was sleeping. Like, after we said we were done, he'd be like, oh, I was sleeping. I didn't even hear any of that.
It just went from 4 people making fun of one guy to 3 people making fun of one guy, and the guy that were making fun of checked out 20 minutes prior. You had another situation where if he had conventional parents and went home and he's like, these guys were saying that like this caged animal of a man with a skin condition was pacing back and forth, sweating, waiting to taste me. Oh my God. He would get kind of, first he would just lose interest. First he would be like, it would go from him laughing to him being like, huh.
He would add some jokes to it, and then I would do this.
And Johnson, who was kind of the ringleader, like once you open a door for like what if, Johnson's the king of what if, and Johnson took it to like insanely dark places, and like we were cackling, and Muse would go from laughing to like, and then just, and then like suddenly there was no laughter. And then he would sit there reading a comic book, like giving us more material. We're like, how much for that fucking page, buddy? Just laying into him like crazy. And then he would literally close the book and like go to sleep against the door, pretend to go to sleep.
I think it's the only time I've ever seen him do that, because 99% of the time he would go back at you with like, well, then you did this. But I guess he doesn't feel him well that day, or he just didn't have it in him.
Yeah, it was just like, I don't know how many different ways you can have me fucking this guy, but it stopped being funny 20 minutes ago. And it was one of the only times I've ever seen him shut down. And it was also like, put yourself in his position. You're trapped in a fucking car. You can't even be like, pull over, let me out. Because you're on the fucking parkway somewhere between Toms River and Highlands. And the dude was just trapped and had to take it.
But he was that rare 14-year-old who had a wit and humor about him that he could go back at a 20-year-old and school him, though.
Yes, totally.
In terms of, like if they made, like, he had enough ammunition most of the time.
Yes.
To, like, he could shut your words.
To where you're just like, yeah, that's funny fucking news.
Not this day.
No. Oh, my God.
I can't remember crying.
But he didn't. I remember he did not go to the next show.
No.
No, he took like the next show off where he was just like, yeah, that's all right. You guys are just gonna make fun of me. That's my.